I don't know what I would do without you. No matter how old you get, I will always see you as my little baby. You're my easy child. You never complained. If you grew up in an emotionally immature household, those phrases were probably not uncommon during childhood. And in fact, they were said to us as a form of a compliment. But the question I have today for you is, were they compliments? Welcome to Confessions from the Car, the place where we unpack the complexities of being raised by an emotionally immature parent. I'm your host, Courtney. And as I teased with those phrases above, we are going to be talking today about the 7 covertly toxic things we heard growing up. If you see me glance to the side here, I have a litany of notes because I did not want to omit anything when I was writing and compiling information for this podcast. I wanted to make sure I did not leave out one nugget of information that I wanted to share with you today. So welcome to today's show. It is, how can I say it, bittersweet, because as I said before, we've often heard these 7 phrases. All of them but one is said not with malicious intent, but as an expression of love, care, and concern. And compliment. It's a compliment, actually, a lot of these phrases when we hear them as children. But one thing I want to really underscore with today's show is this. Manipulation can masquerade as love, and control can camouflage as care. Now, many of us, I've said it before and I'll say it again, when we are children, we have one job and one primary job only, and that is to attach to our primary caregiver. And we will do that by any means necessary. There is something innate in us when we are young children. We know that we would not live, we would not be able to eat, we would not be able to put a roof over our head if not for our parent. So we are going to do whatever we have to do. We are going to tap dance, metaphorically, tap dance our hearts out, turn ourselves inside out and twist ourselves into knots in order to make sure that our caregiver loves us. We will jump through as many hoops as necessary, and we will lose ourselves in the process. So back then, when we were hearing a lot of these phrases that I'm going to share with you today, when we heard them, it's quite possible that the little hairs on the back of our neck stood up, or there was a little pit in our stomach, because sometimes the body knows. Even when we're young, the body knows, but we had no choice. We were fully and totally dependent on our caregiver, which means that if we had to partake in a role reversal in which our little childish self had to rescue and placate our mother or father in order to be cared for ourselves, we will do that. We will, of course, engage in a role reversal, no matter how toxic and damaging it is to our psyche. So the 7 phrases that we're going to hear today, now that we're on the other side, now that we've made it into adulthood, and we know all about these, or we're learning or becoming more aware of the maladaptive tendencies that we have encountered as children of emotionally immature parents, it's going to be bittersweet to revisit a lot of these phrases, because I bet you dollars to donuts you've heard these before. You've heard them before. Before I jump into the list, though, I want to encourage you, please, 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 please watch until the end. I'm going to be introducing 3 words. 3 words that drive a straight line through all 7 of these phrases. 3 words. Now, when we were children, and I'd venture to say even when we were teenagers, even young adults, we probably had no idea what these 3 words were. I know I didn't. I didn't become aware of these 3 words until I was in my 40s. I'm a late bloomer. But I'm going to explain to you these 3 words. 2 of them describe or basically are the roots of these 7 phrases. And one of those 3 words is the key to unlocking the cage that we've been in that would enable these 7 phrases to continue. Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to start with the first one. You're my rock. You're my rock. Now imagine that you're a young girl or a young boy and you see your mother or father distressed and you cook dinner for your siblings, or you play therapist for your mom when she's, bed won't get out of bed and is crying to you about some troubles at work or troubles with your father. And your parent looks at you dead in your eyes and says, "You're my rock." It might even feel good in the moment. Saying that right now almost makes my stomach churn. It makes my stomach churn because it is anything but a compliment. It is a complete and utter and dangerous role reversal in which the child is charged with the task of supporting a parent. And that is an insurmountable job for a minor. It's just not designed that way. They are supposed to take care of us, not the other way around. You're my rock, that's number 1. Number 2, I've heard this one many, many times. Number 2, I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't have anyone else to talk to. So when you hear that, that's the catalyst of some kind of emotional avalanche about to, erupt and unfold, right? So there's problems with work, there's problems with you name it, there is a problem. And, so I'm going to take a little sip. And because your parent does not have, or could not, or did not develop the adult relationships necessary to give them fulfillment, we're all that's left. Excuse me, we're all that's left. So we're the ones that have to listen intently and sometimes even give our opinion on something that we should not even be hearing any part of. That's number 2. I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't have anyone else to talk to. Number 3. I never have to worry about you. I never have to worry about you. Now, this is for my fellow type A kiddies who worried all the time. Worried about your parents, worried about your schoolwork, worried about your social situation, bullies, what have you, because the ultimate compliment, or what sounded like the ultimate compliment, our parents never have to worry about us, right? We have it so together that they don't have to worry about us. Now, I'm sorry to tell you this, worry is bad in all forms, okay? But they should care about us. They should be concerned about us. They should check in on us. You can substitute worry for care, think about. Basically, I don't have to worry about you is synonymous with, I really don't have to be awake at the switch with you. I just have to feed you and clothe you, and you emotionally, you're good. And that's how kids break. That's how kids go to sleep at night with knots in their stomach, walk to school and feel like they're going to vomit. They don't know why. They are hyper vigilant as fuck, and they don't know why. Because they are generally holding the household, the emotional weather of the household on their shoulders. And the reason why the parent says they don't have to worry about him or her is because that child doesn't say anything. That child knows not to say anything because who's going to help them? So I guess I'll just keep it to myself. That's that one. I never have to worry about you, number 3. Number 4, oh my gosh, this one just boils my blood, but I'm going to have to say it anyway. No matter how old you get, I will always see you as my little boy or my little girl. Now, it sounds sweet as pie, this phrase, right? And so, the parent isn't envisioning us as this sweet, innocent little child, right? cute as a button, as we all were. And they're saying that that image is seared into their brain. That image is seared into their brain. That's how they will forever see us. There's no modification. You could be 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. They're going to see you, memorialize you as this little girl or boy. And again, on the surface, it sounds so sweet. It sounds so loving, right? Because particularly at that age where they remember you at, that's when the parents were, at least in theory, were doing a lot of the heavy lifting, the coddling, the comforting you, the applying the bandages to the knees, braiding your hair, taking you to school, right? That's when the parents really got their supposed sea legs and can really demonstrate their competency as parents, right? It was a very hands-on, parenthood was a very hands-on job back then, right? Unlike when we're, gaining our independence, obviously, then the tide turns and we're taking on more responsibility for ourselves. But back then, at that age, when our parents says they see us as this little boy or little girl, what also was happening during that time? Think about it. Our parents had more control. And I said before, in the beginning of this podcast, control can camouflage as care. I don't care how the parent frames that, but when I hear that, my first knee-jerk response, my first knee-jerk reaction is that you forever want to live in that position where you're up here and I'm down here. I want to memorialize you in this position when I had all the power. When you couldn't say no to me. When you couldn't leave. When you couldn't protest. When you didn't have a voice. That's how I want to remember you. That's how I would remember you. So when I hear no matter how old you get, meaning I don't care how much independence you've gained. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care if you're married or not. I don't care if you're a husband or a wife. I will always see you as a little boy or a little girl. All right, moving on. So we've done 1, 2, 3. Now we're going on to number 4. Or no, we already did number 4. Okay, number 5. Oh. A daughter is a daughter all of your life, but a son is a son until he takes a wife. Few phrases boil my blood like that one. So my mother used to say this to me all the time, and I'm an only child. And she used to say this to me, oh my gosh, the memory of first hearing that phrase roll out of my mother's mouth, I was definitely in elementary school. She made sure to really repeat it often and frequently when I was in elementary school. And now I look back in retrospect, and it was almost like planting the seed. And I didn't really know what it meant. I thought maybe, we're going to be friends all the time. And couched in that phrase is a responsibility for the child, for the daughter rather, to remain emotionally available to her mother in a way that the son gets let off the hook for, right? Because he's taken the wife, he's the imagery is he's going off, but the daughter is a daughter all of your life. So it's basically telling the mother, you will never, ever, ever lose your daughter. She will always be a part of you, and by proxy, she will always be of service to you. It wasn't until I got older, got married myself, and then eventually became a mother shortly thereafter, well, 4 years after. I had my first child 4 years after I got married. And a combination of other things started to happen between my mother and me, and I started to realize a daughter is a daughter all your life. A son is a son until he takes a wife. It's branding. That is branding at its finest. And so what I hear in there If you really just, if you listen with a third ear, what I hear in there is that you basically belong to your mother all your life. She needs a therapist, it's you. She needs a best friend, it's you. She needs a retirement plan, it's you. She needs to fill in for the romantic partner that she couldn't attract. And when I say romantic, I don't mean sexual from her daughter. I mean the emotional nourishment that should be reserved for a romantic partner. Mothers, dysfunctional mothers, oftentimes turn to their daughters with the expectation that that will be given by the daughter. That's what I hear when a daughter is a daughter all your life, a son is a son until he takes a wife. You're basically an emotional hostage for your mother all your life. Feel free to disagree if you want. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a coach. I'm not a doctor. I am someone who has walked the walk, still on the journey, in therapy, have read a ton of books and still reading books on this topic. And I just want to share my findings. I want to share my experiences and those experiences of others that we can all relate to. And I think that it's high time that we start speaking up, because for a long, long time, what we have endured in the households of emotionally immature parents has festered in secrecy. It has festered in secrecy because society tells us that all mothers are loving, all mothers are nurturing, that the hand that rocks the cradle can't actually be the one that shackles you to them for the rest of their life. But we all know that that's not true. And so here we are. Here we are. But I will tell you, with this episode and all the others, take what you need and leave the rest. Take what you need and leave the rest. All right, moving on. So I think we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6. Okay. Come on. We're family. Come on. Let it slide. We're family. Well, I know your mom's always like that. I know that's just how she is. Come on. We're family. Every single time I hear a situation with the suffix or the ending sentence, but, or cuz, or come on, we're family, that's basically code for fuck your boundaries, keep a stiff upper lip, let it roll off your back, and be the bigger person. If I'm wrong, you feel free to disagree, but that's what I hear when I hear, come on, we're family. Basically what that means is, let all that bad toxic shit go, the kind of shit that you would not allow from a friend, a partner, a coworker, but let it go because we're family. It's bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. And I've told you before, control can camouflage as care, and manipulation can masquerade as love. That is the embodiment of 2 words. We're family. Now again, I'm not trying to be a cold-hearted bitch. Obviously, there is merit in family, in sticking together. But what I'm trying to say is, if this certain kind of treatment wouldn't pass muster with any other relationship in your life, why does family get a pass? I'm going to tell you something. There's a woman that introduced my husband and me, and for our wedding gift, she had framed a beautiful quote. I'm going to say it here. The person you love the most, you treat the best. I'll say it again. The person you love the most, you treat the best. That's a little offshoot of, hell, if you expect strangers on the street to treat you nicer than the people that you share kin with, there's something wrong with that. It's bad. A lot of people have it backwards. Well, because we're family, I can just treat you like shit any other way because you're family. Where are you going? It's bullshit. And it's time we call it bullshit. Last but certainly not least, now I've left all of the warm and fuzzy ones. Those were 1 through 6. Those are ones that they're supposed to be said with an air of love and affection and acceptance. We all know that's not the case. But those were, how can "You're my rock" be, on its surface does not look bad. I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't have anyone else to talk to. On its surface, it doesn't look bad, right? This last one, number 7, I wouldn't say they're all bad. There's no such thing as the worst here. But this one really, really cuts deep. I heard this one from my father many, many times. Stop crying or I will give you something to cry about. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. If there is any phrase that undermines a child's emotional response, emotional reactions, just invalidates the child to the hilt, it's this phrase. Couple things. First is that children cry as a form of communication. Okay? Our brains are not adequately developed to be able to vocalize, put language to, and accurately characterize what it is that we're feeling. Okay? Depending on the age of the child, sometimes crying is all they can do. Okay? And so, as if whatever wasn't bad enough that made the child cry in the first place, now the parent's going to come on and say, no, I'm going to give you me, who's supposed to be your safe place, your caregiver, your provider, your lover, your protector, the person who loves you. I'm going to give you something to cry about, because what made you cry, that shouldn't have made you cry. It did, but it shouldn't have. So now, because you're crying about that, I'm going to pile on to that. I'm going to make shit even. I'm going to double down. I'm going to give you something to cry about. And let me just say this to Maya Angelou, the late great Maya Angelou, late great American poet, who so famously said, when you know better, you do better. I really don't mean to shame the previous generations, because to a certain degree they did do the best they could with what they had. And I'll never know what it was like to be a parent in that era. I'll never know what it's like to be a baby boomer parent. I don't know. I know now, though, saying that phrase to my children almost makes me sick to my stomach. The thought of saying that to a crying child, stop crying or I will give you something to cry about. But to let these parents tell it, who uttered that phrase, they were trying to make us tough. Right? They were trying. They don't want to raise any wussies. Right? Crying is a form of weakness, and we don't do weak around here. But let me ask you. Asking a child if they want you to give them something to cry about, a hurting, and obviously hurting, a crying, hurting, defenseless child who you have been charged with the task of taking care of. You're going to intimidate that child at their lowest point when they're crying, helpless, scared, fragile. And you say, stop crying or I will give you something to cry about. Who's weak? Who's weak? I'm going to leave that there. I did promise you in the beginning, I encourage you to watch to the end, because I had 3 words I wanted to share with you. All of these phrases have their birthplace in 2 toxic situations. And one of them is called enmeshment. Now, listen, come at me if you want. I did my due diligence to look for a succinct and acceptable definition of enmeshment. And the second and third phrases I want to share with you today, but just for full disclosure, I got this from ChatGPT, but it's pretty damn good, so please don't come at me. Just listen first. But But this first is enmeshment. I'm going to share with you what enmeshment is. Enmeshment is a family dynamic in which personal boundaries are weak or non-existent. Family members become overly involved in another's emotions, decisions, and lives. In an enmeshed family, privacy is often viewed as rejection or secrecy. Independence may be discouraged. A person's emotions become everyone else's responsibility. Guilt is often used intentionally or unintentionally to keep people emotionally close. So here's an example. A healthy parent might say, I miss my adult child, but I know she has her own life. But an enmeshed parent would say, if my adult child doesn't call me every day, she doesn't love me. So you can see how an enmeshed mother might say, I'm sorry to bother you, but I don't have anyone else I can talk to. Or you could see how an enmeshed father would say, you're my rock, I just don't know what I would do without you. Do you see the synergy there? So one doesn't necessarily lead to the other, but they're very related. Okay. So here's the tagline. Healthy closeness allows for both connection and independence. Enmeshment expects connection at the expense of independence. So you can also see why, no matter how old you get, I'll always see you as my little boy or little girl. See, an enmeshed parent is always going to see you as that role. See, they don't want you independent. They want you at their whims. They want you dependent, not independent. Dependent. The second phrase I want to share with you today is parentification. Parentification occurs when a child takes on responsibilities that belong to the parent. There are two common forms. There's emotional parentification. The child becomes the parent's therapist, confidant, emotional support, peacemaker, source of comfort. So the child learns, quote, it's my job to make mom feel okay. It's my job to make mom feel okay. So there's instrumental parentification. That's when a child takes on such tasks as raising siblings, managing the household, paying bills, caring for a sick parent. While helping occasionally is normal, parentification becomes harmful when it is chronic and the child's own emotional needs are consistently neglected. Many parentified children grow up feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness. And you can see how, oh, come on, we're family, rolls right into that. Right? Everybody else's feelings, all that, that's all on us, right? And we were, the groundwork was laid for us to be that way in adulthood because we've been hearing phrases like this since we were knee-high to a grasshopper. Okay, so I saved the last word, which is the key. This is the key to get us out of all of this. And it's called differentiation. Differentiation. Differentiation is the ability to remain emotionally connected to your family while still maintaining your own identity, value, thoughts, and boundaries. A well-differentiated person can say no without overwhelming guilt, tolerate another person's disappointment, make decisions based on their own values rather than fear, stay calm during emotional conflict. Now this is a big one. Love someone without feeling responsible for fixing them. Differentiation is not emotional distance or coldness. Here's an example. It's more like saying, I care about you, but I don't have to manage your emotions. Someone with low differentiation often feels guilty for setting boundaries, anxious when their parent is upset, responsible for everyone's feelings, afraid that saying no means they're a bad person. Someone with high differentiation can think, my mother is upset, and that's okay. Her feelings belong to her, and I can care about her without abandoning myself. Okay, so I'm going to read this last part. I defined those three words, enmeshment, parentification, and differentiation, but let me just read how ChatGPT tied them all together. These concepts often unfold in a predictable pattern. Enmeshment creates blurred boundaries, okay? Because you're together, so there's no boundaries. We're fused, okay? So enmeshment creates blurred boundaries. Parentification gives the child adult emotional responsibilities. Okay, so now that we're together, now all of a sudden the kid becomes almost like the caretaker, okay? And then 3, as an adult, the child works towards differentiation by developing healthy boundaries and recognizing that they are not responsible for managing a parent's emotions. Differentiation is often challenging because it changes a long established family pattern. Bingo, that is so true. A parent who relied on an adult child for emotional support may react with confusion, guilt, or attempts to restore the old dynamic. They don't want it changing. That goes back, no matter how old you get, I want to see you as my little boy and little girl. They don't want it to change. That doesn't necessarily mean that the boundary is wrong. It often means the relationship is adjusting to a healthier balance. The goal of differentiation isn't to love your family less. It's to love them without losing yourself. Love without losing yourself, ladies and gentlemen. That's what today is about. Love yourself. Love others. Love others without losing yourself. That's the goal of all this. And it can be an uphill battle if we grew up hearing these 7 covertly toxic things. It can be a change. It can be a challenge. Yeah, this was a heavy one. I will catch you next week. Thank you for spending some time here with Confessions from the Car today. And I will see you on the next video.